All right, it is that time. They are here. I hope I have them connected.
Yes, you do.
Oh, I'm getting kind of smooth. They made some changes on the board, and I did that. That was real smooth, Cheryl. I'm kind of proud of myself. Welcome to the show, you guys. It is that time of the year, the first Covenant Conversations of 2017. They are here. Happy New Year, ladies.
Happy New Year.
Oh, wow. How was your New Year?
It was good. For me, it was pretty low-key, but I just got to, spend some time with loved ones, and it was good. It was exactly what it needed to be. So.
Okay. There's a saying like how you bring in the new year is an indication of how the year will be. I've heard. Have you guys heard that before?
No, I haven't heard that.
Okay, I've heard that before. Okay, you heard it.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, I was like thinking, okay, last year I didn't go to church for New Year's, but what I did was I created a journal. I think I shared with you that I created a journal that it's not a journal where I write my own thoughts or feelings. It's a journal of only what God speaks to me and none of my insight. And so I write in it quite frequently because whether it's church or a sermon or, conversation or whatever, I just write down messages that God speaks to me. So for the year, as the new year came in, I was just reflecting on all the specific messages that God had spoken to me for the year and just prayed my way into the new year.
Good way to start.
So it was nice. However, though, it was a tough year, and I spent my year on my knees probably more than I ever had. It was not almost as if God was preparing me, I think, in that way, that it was going to be a really tough year and that I was going to really have to listen to him very closely and, be very prayerful. There was a lot of challenges and things in my life in 2016, but I had been so prepared. I could always go back in addition to, Bible, of course, being first in church, but just in my private time, I could always go back to that particular journal and just see all of like God was preparing me that 2016 was going to be difficult. I was going to lose some loved ones. My mom got really sick in 2016. There was just a lot of life changes that I wasn't prepared for. My daughter got sick and, and having her baby, like it was a lot of challenges that I just didn't share in 2016, but I can go back and see how God has prepared me for 2016. But so interesting, this year I spent New Year's, I went to church, and then after church I went to a gathering, and I had fun. I had a really, 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 really good time. So I hope that's an indication that this year is going to be full of fun and some celebration, some more good time.
That is good. That's definitely a good balance to have. There's dose of both.
Absolutely. So what's happening? What are we talking about today? I didn't share what we were talking about today. I was going to let you.
Okay. Well, I will go ahead and introduce our topic. So tonight we are talking about how to balance friendships when you're dating or married. So we are going to jump into that topic, but I just want to take one quick second before we do, because Crystal Marie actually has some news, and I told her that I wanted her to share this.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I recently, I think it was at the end of December, I published my first devotional, and it's titled The Diva Diaries Devotionals, Ruth in the Right Field, and it is now available on Amazon. And I'm so very excited because I'm also leading the 4-week online Bible study, which I launched last Friday. So there's videos and there's worksheets and everything on my website that go along with the devotional. And so I'm super, super excited about this new part of my ministry.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so awesome. Round of applause. Let's praise God for that one. Amazing.
And just for anyone listening, we'll post the information about Crystal Marie's devotional on our Covenant Conversations Facebook page, so you'll be able to click directly from there. So, yes.
Absolutely.
Congratulations, Crystal Marie.
Yes, awesome. And you're more than welcome to share your website and any additional information while we're here on the air. Not a problem. And where people can even find your book. You can share that with us, too, if you like.
Oh,
or
great.
next month.
Share it now?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so my website is thedivainc.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find me at The Diva Diaries, basically on any social media.
The Diva Diary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So thank you for sharing
Awesome.
that, Crystal Marie. It's definitely
Yes.
going to be a blessing. And we talk so much about relationships on this show, and so her devotional helps women to focus on getting prepared for marriage. I just thought it would be really appropriate for the people listening. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And, Crystal Marie, I definitely offer the invitation at another time for you to come on and talk more about it.
Oh, absolutely. I would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make it happen.
Okay.
All right. So we'll go ahead and jump into our topic. And I am hoping that a lot of people can relate to this idea of how to balance friendships when you're dating or married. And it's interesting because there's kind of two different sides to it. I mean, I think there are the people out there who relate to the side of, oh my gosh, I had this friend and then she got a boo or she got married and now all of a sudden I never hear from her, I never see her, we never hang out. And that can be really disappointing and really hurtful, and it's like you never want to feel, you never want to make the other person feel like you're not happy for them, but at the same time, it's like you might miss your friend. You know that they're off being happy and excited and living their life, but, you miss your friend, and that can be a really hurtful thing. And then on the other hand, when you get into a serious relationship, and especially a marriage, that is a life change and it is a transition. So the idea of how to balance it, I think, is important. And so we'll talk about what that looks like, but I kind of want to make clear that our goal really is this word balance. And it's so funny because somebody on my Facebook page was like, I hope you really are talking about balancing friendships and not getting rid of them altogether. And so I just want to say, yes, of course, the goal is balance in everything. We all believe that it is important to maintain your friendships when you get into a relationship or get into marriage for various reasons. But we also know that comes with wisdom and balance. So we'll get into some of those things, and I think I'm going to let Denise start off with some of her tips.
Okay. Well, one of the things, actually, I'm going to start with my own personal experience, which I learned the hard way a lot. So it's my example of what not to do. But I've shared before that I've done the relationship thing in a way that I was so completely immersed in my relationships that I let, all my friendships fall to the wayside. And that even includes, family relationships as well. Even just keeping people at a distance or spending less time with other people because all I wanted to do was hang out with my babe. So it's nice while you're in the relationship and, you have that person, although they should not be your only connection in the world. But the other side of that is not all of my relationships have lasted. And when you come out of a relationship, you really need a friend. And coming from a place where you have absolutely let all of your friendships go, that's, it's a very lonely place to be because, sometimes it's years, and you haven't spoken to people, and you can't just, there's nobody to say, hey, girl, let's take you out, or none of that. So I've found that I had to do an attitude switch in relationships since then, and just coming from the place where it's not an either or, and in not looking at it as my friendships taking away from my relationship, but being the both and type of mentality where, I can balance a friendship and I can also have a healthy relationship, because you absolutely, you need to be able to juggle both and make time for your friends and be a good friend also, and practice loyalty with your friends, because you're going to need that in your relationship as well.
Absolutely. That is important. I think that's important too. Like you were saying, Denise, that you want to keep your friendships, because if your relationship doesn't last, then you're going to need that support. And I think in addition to that, you also need that support when you're in the relationship. Because I've found that, when you're dating someone, you do get a lot of emotional support from the person that you're with. That's the person you're telling how your day was, and, if something's bothering you, more than likely you're talking to them, or, that's the person you're spending time with, having fun with. But they have times where they need to go and do something else too. And then sometimes there are things that maybe a woman would better understand. And I'd like to talk about the guy I'm with about those things, but at the same time, you get sometimes a different perspective when you're talking to other women. And so I found that even in relationships, it's important to have those especially those other female friendships for me, because I get support, and then that way I'm also not putting all of my needs and wants on this one person in my life. It's like I don't want to wear him out or make him burn out. So it's like I need to spread myself out and not be, put myself only on one person. So I think it protects the space that, a romantic partner has in your life when you're balanced by having other forms of support and it's not all on them.
Yeah, it could be a lot of pressure.
To
be your everything, and nobody's called to be your everything.
Exactly.
Right? Sometimes you just want a girl talk, and that is not really what the guy is interested in. And I think you also have to remember that, the person chose to date you based on who you are, and, you've had things going on in your life, and they look at you and decide, this person's really great. You don't change all of that just because you get in a relationship. Your friendships are part of your life and what you have going on with yourself.
Absolutely.
Very true.
And there's a book that I like a lot. It's called Boundaries in Dating. And one of the chapters in that book is called Don't Get Kidnapped. And that is a chapter that I reread because it's so good. And it's all about how when you are first dating someone, it's so easy to just get fully immersed in their life because you're so excited, your emotions are high, and it's just easy to get completely wrapped up in that person. But the book really talks about why it's not good to do that, like for your own sake, for your own emotional, spiritual, mental well-being, and for the sake of the relationship and the pace of it. So it talks about don't get kidnapped, and by that it means keep the things in your life there, because those things balance you and keep your heart from getting too vested all in one place too fast. And so part of not getting kidnapped is keeping your friendships.
Yes.
Crystal Marie, did you have anything to add yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
See, because I'm on the other side. No, because I'm on the other side. I'm on the side of I'm not dating right now, but all of my friends are either dating or married. So I'm trying to be considerate of their transition in life and where they are, So I'm on the other side of that.
Yeah. Well, and that's understandable. And it's like I think that's another important reason in and of itself. It's like we don't only want to keep our friendships, when we're dating or in a relationship, it's like we don't only want to keep our friendships for our sake or for our relationship's sake. It's also for our friends' sake. I mean, it's not all about us. It's about them, too. They've invested time. They've, invested into the relationship in various ways. And so if you love and care about your friends, you don't want to leave them. Which is it actually reminds me of a story. And I called my mom earlier today. That I was like, Mom, can I tell this story? She said yes. So when my mom was single, years ago, she told me that she was at a friend's wedding or someone from her church, and she was sitting with some of the other single girls from the church. And so this woman, the bride that, just got married, came up to her and the other girls and said, "Oh, it's so nice you single girls are sticking together."
Oh, wow.
When my mom told me that, I was like, no, she didn't.
Wow.
But I think that's kind of like the worst nightmare. It's like I can only imagine to see your friend, act brand new all of a sudden. It's like just in our spot,
But at the same time, though, I think, even though I wouldn't have said it that way, she has a point, right? Because there's stuff that single women can do together that married women cannot do. Like, if I'm going to call you up and say, let's go to the movie, a married woman is going to have to think about, well, am I going to do anything with my husband tonight? Do I have to do some stuff with the kids? Like, I'm single and I don't have kids, so I don't have to think about that stuff. I could just call you up and say, let's go to the movies, and, if you're single and we're on the same level, you could do that too. So to be fair, single women kind of got to stick together. But I'm not saying that I want to, because like I said, all my friends are either dating someone or married. So you just have to be cognizant of where they are in life and, what their responsibilities are as a friend.
Right.
I think it's a two-way street.
Right, absolutely. And I don't think the woman who said that, it was like she was saying it in a snooty way, like like a condescending way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm wrong with sticking together, absolutely.
Stand together. When you're in a relationship, your priorities do definitely change, and you have to make room in your life for the new relationship. But you also have to make room in your life for your friends too, and you have to, consider keeping them around. Because like Alicia said, you still need friends, and they still need you, and you want someone there that's going to tell you the truth in love and give you an honest look at yourself. And, Proverbs 17:17 says that a friend loves at all times, not just when you're single. You definitely have to consider that. And sometimes I have this problem, and I look at time with my friends taking me away from the time with my boo, but at the same time with my boo is also taking away from time with my friends. And it's funny that I don't necessarily look at it that way all the time. And while your priorities are changing and you might have less in common with your single friends, you might have more in common now with your married friends. And I've heard it said that, you want 3 different types of people in your circle, and one type is those that can lift you up, and another type is, people that are right at your level, but the other type is those that you can lift up. And just like in career and finances, relationships are the same way. There's somebody who's going to look to you for answers when they're starting out in a relationship or wanting to be in one, and you're going to have your friends that are further along in their relationships that you can glean information and advice from as well. So you definitely want to keep all of your friends, I think, or the ones I'll say that are not a hindrance to your relationship.
And I'll just say one other thing on the topic of keeping your friends before we kind of talk about from the other aspect of when you're in a relationship or married. But the other thing is keeping your friendships also keeps you accountable when you're dating. And we've talked about that a little bit on the show before, but it's really important to not disappear from your friends, because that's exactly how you can get into trouble, and, you can find yourself maybe dating someone that's not good for you, and you don't, now you've removed yourself from the people who can kind of speak into your life and kind of see, well, you know, you seem different, or is everything okay? You want to keep that accountability, absolutely, in a relationship, and friends are really good for that. So on the other side of things, there is a reality, though, to the fact that when you get into a relationship, especially if it's a serious relationship that's heading towards marriage, or when you get married, those things are major life transitions. And it is necessary and even fair, I would say, to understand that any person in your life who is in that season is, because their life is transitioning, your friendship may experience a transition. I don't believe that transition should be deleted, but there is a transition, and there is some sort of a shift. You know, we've had our friend Wakima on the show last year, and she's married, and I always talk about her as a person who does, I think, a really great job of keeping us in our life, and she likes it. It gives her time away from her husband and kids. She loves it. She's always like, oh, yeah, I'll get a babysitter. But at the same time, I think in my mind, I understand that she might be a little busy, or she may have things going on, and she may not be able to come to every single thing. So I think there is that element, too. So I know, Denise, you had some things that you want to share about when you're in a relationship, what things that friends should keep in mind. Unless you already shared them.
I think I shared most of them. One thing, though, is there's some cases where I feel like I catch a lot of undercover flack sometimes from being in a relationship, because sometimes we have our little group, and a lot of us are single, and sometimes they'll, make their plans, and they'll say, oh, girl, are you coming? Oh, no, you got a date. And sometimes I even don't, but I think it's just automatically starting to count me out now, which I guess that's how that's going to be for a little bit. But, I mean, you don't have to automatically count your friends out just because they are in a relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And I think that's important, because I've experienced that before in a relationship, where it's like a friend who's not dating someone at that time will say, oh, well, you've been MIA, so I guess, it's like these little, like, Lowkey Shade, and I'm like, I'm sorry that I, have somebody to go out with, but,
sorry, not sorry.
I think that comes from, low-key, your single friends not all of your single friends want to be single, right? So sometimes it is a little bit hard to see the friends that you're hanging out with and kind of filling that space with, fill that space with somebody else, because they serve, while you're single, they serve that, so that you don't have to be reminded all the time that you're single, you have your girlfriends and you have your circle. So I think that's probably where the Lowkey Shade comes from. So we all have to just remember, we want to be happy for each other, and, it's a blessing to have somebody in your life, but we also want to make it open for that space to balance that we're talking about.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's understandable. I don't think it makes a person jealous if it's hard to see, because I know that feeling. Sometimes it is hard. It's not that you're not happy for the friend, but it might remind you of what you don't have in your life. True. To me, that's not jealousy. And so I think it's fair for the person in the relationship or marriage to kind of, be understanding or be sensitive, and not just say, oh, well, you're just jealous. No, it's not that. It's, singleness can have painful aspects to it. So I think it's important to be sensitive, but I think it's just also important for the friend to be sensitive and to pull back from kind of putting guilt trips on the person for having dates. Yeah.
In general, you don't want to put guilt trips on your friend, right?
In general, right. Guilt trips are never good.
Yeah. I know, too, like, when I was single, part of what made that easier and more enjoyable was the friendship.
Right.
And so when those start to kind of fade away, if the ones in a relationship are absolutely calling it quits or, being around less, now all of a sudden you don't have as much to do in your singleness.
Yep. Right.
And so you're back to Friday night by yourself or Saturdays, by yourself.
Right.
When you would have hung out with your buddy who is now booed up. So
right.
I could see that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. That I agree with.
And I think another thing that's important to be mindful of, too, and I think this especially is the case for marriage, maybe not as much a dating situation, but a person who is married, from a biblical standpoint, they are more accountable or responsible to their marriage has to take a higher priority than friendships. And so I think that's another thing for friends to keep in mind. It's not like, oh, well, we should get equal time between your spouse.
No.
That's not an appropriate expectation. And so if you are, let's say, used to hanging out every weekend may not be may no longer be feasible. It may have to be more like once a month or a couple times a month, or squeezing it in at another time.
Right.
So I think part of that transition is just understanding maybe the frequency will change, or maybe you might feel like less of a priority, and that's okay. That feeling like less of a priority doesn't mean that the married friend is wrong, because he or she should start putting their spouse ahead of their friends. And so I think that's another thing to expect with the transition. I think sometimes in singleness, it's such a, because singleness can get challenging, it's like we do band together so hard that it's like we're used to like being each other. It's like, yeah, I've got your back all the time. So it's like you kind of got to get used to your friend not being part of that feeling anymore, because, they have to have their spouse's back all the time, and they should, again, remain available to the friendship to a degree, but the friendship is not as quite as high as a priority as their spouse. So I think that's another thing that's important.
Yeah, I think the friend should definitely be understanding of, like what you were saying, and then maybe not even expecting a frequency, like, every month, but just being open and understanding that, maybe this month they're going to have a lot more time to spend with you because their husband is out of town or something. But maybe next month and the next month after that, it's not going to be as frequent. So you kind of just have to be open and understanding, and, there does have to be some kind of communication between the married friend and the friend. But I don't want to say have no expectations, but just adjust the expectations, because they're going to be a lot different.
Yeah, I think that's realistic. And I also think another thing that's very important is for two things. So one, I think the closer you get to marriage, the more you're going to, I think Denise did already kind of touch on this, but the more you might need to pull on friends, a different group of friends, friends who are married or friends who are also in serious relationships, because, there are things that arise maybe as you're dating or as you're moving towards marriage, or once you're married. You have new questions, you have new challenges, you need new advice, you need different things that your single friends may not be able to give you. So that may be another, kind of shift within itself, because that person is now maybe hanging out more with people in their season.
I was going to say that.
Because that's necessary, But again, it's important to be mindful to not let that become, I now completely abandon my single friends. Because I know I'm so grateful for the married women I know who make themselves available to me as a resource. No, I don't see or talk to them nearly as much as my single friends, but I get it, because, I'm not in their season. But I love the fact that, I have a married friend in Phoenix who she would let me just come over while she's cooking dinner for her husband and kids, and then we'll go in a room and talk. And it's like she still made herself available to pour into my life, and so that's important. But at the same time, I know for most of the time she's probably going to be spending time with people in her same season. So I think that's one thing that's important. And then my last point that I would kind of say that is important is that a friend should understand that someone who is married or in a relationship, they should understand, well, they should always do this, but definitely shouldn't be a negative influence on the relationship itself.
Right.
Because if you're in a relationship or you're married, you don't want your friends to be the type that are saying, like, oh, yeah, like, he's not good. He's no, you know, like ragging on men, or if you're a man, ragging on women, or, you know, like, you just need to go out. Don't worry about what she says. You just need to come out with the boy. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want someone who's going to undermine your relationships. And thankfully, I don't have people like that in my life anyway. I wouldn't want that to even influence me, you know, in any season. But I think that's another thing that's important. And hopefully, you know, again, hopefully we're, even before you get to the point where you're dating or married, you don't have friends that speak negatively about the other gender or throw the other gender under the bus all the time. But that becomes especially important when you're dating or married, because you don't want your friends' influence to cause you to basically tear you away from your spouse or the person that you're dating by planting negative thoughts or encouraging you to kind of be against that person in some way. So that's really important.
Especially with a spouse. Yeah. And I think the other side of that is that when you're in a relationship, we have to be mindful of what we share and who we go to seek advice. Just as an example, I know that there was one lady who sought advice from one of her single girlfriends and, you know, being in a relationship. And, of course, the single girlfriend is just, oh, I would just leave him and, you know, no problem, and there's other fish in the sea. But that's not conducive if you actually want to work out a relationship.
Right.
So, but, again, you know, that's the type of mentality that lady had. So keep in mind who you're going to for advice, and, you know, if they're godly in their consultation, and just have to be wise about it, really, and discerning and who you talk to. And, again, you're not going to tell your friends necessarily everything that goes on in your relationship.
Right.
Some stuff is just between you and your husband or boyfriend or girlfriend, wife. Yeah.
I almost think most of your friends shouldn't know the deep ins and outs of your relationship. You should have designated people, like, you know, a small number, but designated people that you go to for that. And people who, even if you do complain or something, they're not going to take that and be like, yeah, you need to leave him, you know, that they're going to take it in context and be like, okay, she's mad, but all right, here's what you do. Here's your advice. So.
Yeah, they're either going to take it in context and give you the right advice and, you know, how you can move on, but how you can move forward in the relationship if that's what you're trying to do. I definitely think you should have a small few of those people.
Yes. Yeah. SuiteLady, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yes, I did. I absolutely. What I think overall, I want to say that learning these lessons early really makes you so far ahead of the game, and it doesn't put a strain. That the changes in the relationships, it can survive, you know, the transition and the new priorities and responsibilities. Crystal Marie was saying that most of her friends were married, and that's kind of where I am in my life. Most of my friends are married, and the transition was difficult because I'm of the last of the group to get married, and it really appeared like most of my friends got married at the same time. You know, it was just like back to back to back. So then when Denise shared, you know, that all of a sudden, you know, you have like this extra time, it was like, for me, a lot of extra time. And so in missing my friends, because as they got married, I said, hey, you guys, don't forget me. I'm the last one. You know, I was there for you guys, got you all the way down the aisle, but don't forget. And it really felt like they forgot. And so for me to need my friends and I had to think about, okay, is this dinner time? Is this about the time that he's getting home? Is this about the time, you know, that they were laying down? And I'm going to get the voicemail. And I didn't want to get the voicemail because it felt like rejection. And it really wasn't. But I had to be mindful when it would be a good time to talk. And I had to be prepared for, you know, some friends had the mindset that Alicia shared that her mom's friend had, like, she'd arrived. And she didn't want any, there were some that didn't want any part of singleness, didn't want to hear it, didn't want to be friends with a single person, really bought into the mentality that now that I'm married, I'm not going to have any more single friends. And then I think, on the defense for married women, there's really no manual that says, okay, this is how you handle the transition of going from single to married and maintaining, your friendship. So I really had to understand that the season, when Alicia talked about friendships within a season, like I had to finally realize that God was really trying to spend time with me in that season. And I spent a small portion of it being kind of upset about having the extra time. But I did eventually get over it. I told my girlfriends how much I missed them, and the ones that showed up. Some did not initially. And many of the friendships, we found their way back to each other after the honeymoon, maturity, life. You find your way back to each other. But there are some friendships that just did not survive that. And I think that was just a test of the friendship. I mean, it really spoke to the legitimacy of the friendship. But I was never prepared. No one ever told me one day that all my wonderful single girlfriends would get married and we'd have to schedule time together. Like, I just never, ever, ever imagined that would be my life. But it's all good now because I'm okay with my singleness. I like the fact that I can get up and go. I don't push the friendships as much as I used to because we don't have as much in common. When we do get together, they're talking about the houses, the deck, the add-ons, the remodels, the kids, the this, the that, and that's not my life anymore. I'm like, I got to Morris Day in the time, and I was backstage, and they're just like all looking like, okay, we can't even imagine, what that life is like. So it's so very different. There's still love. There's still things that we do have in common, and, we can hang out together, but our lives just became so different, and I just had to accept it. So I just say, to you as well as any of the younger ladies listening, as long as you are aware that this is coming down the road, it makes life easier. No one ever told me, during that time period. So I think this is a great, great conversation. I think that I also told them that whenever I do get engaged, I will be calling and I will be knocking at the door at an inappropriate time. So don't think, don't think that I'm crazy, but I'm like, when I get engaged, I'm knocking at the door, I'm showing up. You're going to wake up and enjoy this moment with me, and they all laugh about it. They all really laugh about it. But I really became okay with it. But I was angry for a long period of time. I was really, really, really angry about that change, but it's all really good. So this is really smart, very insightful information that you guys are discussing tonight. Is my insight.
Yeah. No, I would just say with that, we shouldn't be afraid of, like, the friendship pivot. Sometimes the season is over, and sometimes you just have to realize that it's going to change. And sometimes this is a season where we can open up and make some new friendships and let some new people into our lives. And that's always refreshing to have a new relationship, even if it's a friendship in your life. So, there's different ways that we can handle it, but finding the balance for each one of the friendships, because it's going to be different, is where we want to strive to do.
But you know what? Prior to the change in my life, I wouldn't go anywhere by myself. I wouldn't go out by myself. I wouldn't go to dinner by myself. There were some things I didn't do with myself because it was like 12 of us, in a group. So there was always someone to hang out with. If half of them were in the relationship, there was always the other half that wasn't. So there was just always someone available. But when everyone kind of got married at the same time. It forced me to be comfortable to do things by myself. You know, if I wanted to go to the movie, just go to the movie. If I wanted to go out to dinner, just go out to dinner. And I could sit at a table by myself and enjoy a really, really good meal and come home. You know, it created a different kind of confidence and boldness. And even though I'm not married or engaged or have a serious relationship, dating was very different for me because a man didn't have to approach me with 3 to 6 of my girlfriends with me all the time. So if I'm at the movie or I'm at a dinner or wherever, concert ticket, whatever it was that I wanted to do, I would just go by myself and I would have a lot of fun, and then I would, you know, meet very interesting people, whether it became friendships or associates, but it opened up my world and my self-confidence in a way that I didn't have prior to, because I always had a girlfriend. You know,
you
as
learn how
side
to enjoy
chick,
yourself.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, SuiteLady, for letting us come on the show again, and I just hope that everyone listening got something from it. I know even for me, being on the show is just good reminders on some things, and so hopefully it's the same for everyone.
Absolutely. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. I thank you so very much. Happy New Year. Pray that this is an awesome year for Krista Marie and Denise and Alicia. That this is an awesome. Thank you. That this is an awesome year, and you know, even though we have like all of this atmosphere, environmental unrest, I still believe that some great things are going to happen this year.
Absolutely.
All right, same time, same place.
All right, see you next
in
month.
February.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye.
Bye.